Welcome back everyone to our channel where we uncover the incredible hidden treasures hiding right inside your pocket change. And today's story will absolutely blow your mind because we are diving deep into the unbelievable tale of the 1967 1-cent coin that has shocked the numismatic world with its jaw-dropping value of $99 million. Yes, you heard that right. A single humble 1967 Lincoln 1-cent coin that could be worth nearly $100 million due to its rare and mind-bending combination of minting errors, mysterious production anomalies, and the historical circumstances surrounding its creation during a very unusual era in the US mint's history. And if you've ever wondered whether a small copper coin could change your life, this story is proof that sometimes the tiniest details in coinage can lead to fortunes beyond imagination. So sit tight as we dive into this extraordinary coin's journey, its bizarre minting characteristics, and why collectors from around the globe are obsessed with finding another one just like it, because this 1967 1-cent isn't just rare, it's a perfect storm of historical significance, mint experimentation, and one-of-a-kind minting blunders that make it the ultimate numismatic jackpot. And to understand how a coin that originally cost only a penny to make could now be worth $99 million, we need to rewind to 1967, a year when the US Mint was going through a turbulent transformation following the coin shortage of the early 1960s and the introduction of new metallic compositions after the removal of silver from dimes and quarters. During this chaotic period, the Mint was operating under immense pressure to produce millions of coins quickly. And to make matters even more complicated, 1967 was a year with no mint marks at all, because the Mint had decided to suspend mint marks between 1965 and 1967 to discourage hoarding. So every coin struck in those years lacks the traditional D for Denver or S for San Francisco that normally helps identify its origin, which makes determining where some coins were produced a matter of speculation and analysis based purely on die markers and striking characteristics. And this unusual policy laid the groundwork for confusion, experimentation, and the kind of minting chaos that would give birth to one of the most extraordinary coins ever known, the 1967 1-cent that somehow emerged with multiple overlapping errors, impossible metallic properties, and a visual appearance unlike anything else from the period. Imagine holding a coin that looks at first glance like an ordinary Lincoln cent, but as you tilt it under the light, you see doubling on the date that's so extreme it appears as if the number 1967 has been struck twice at different angles. Then your eyes catch the ghostly outline of Lincoln's face shifted slightly to the right, an off-center strike that left parts of the motto, "In God We Trust," nearly disappearing into the rim. Yet what truly stuns experts is the composition of the coin itself. When tested, this particular specimen shows traces of both copper and an unusual alloy blend believed to have come from experimental planchets used during test strikes for a possible change in material, something that was never meant to leave the mint. And the fact that such a coin not only escaped into circulation but survived decades unnoticed makes it one of the most mind-boggling minting mysteries of all time. The coin's planchet weight is off by a few hundredths of a gram, which might sound trivial, but in numismatic science that tiny difference tells a story of error, and when combined with microscopic examination revealing die cracks, clash marks, and even faint impressions of a foreign object embedded during the striking process, it becomes clear that this is no ordinary cent. This is a once-in-a-century mistake, the kind of coin that embodies the unpredictability of early minting technology and the sheer luck of timing. And experts have argued for years about exactly how it was produced, some suggesting it could have been a transitional error where a leftover bronze planchet from 1962 was accidentally fed into a newer press meant for a slightly different alloy, others theorizing that the die alignment went wrong at precisely the right moment, causing the multi-layered doubling effect that collectors now drool over. And let's not forget that 1967 was also the height of experimentation with coin presses, with the mint testing new machinery designed to increase output, meaning mechanical malfunctions were not only possible but common. And among all those millions of coins, one emerged that combined nearly every kind of flaw imaginable: a double die obverse, an off-center strike, die cracks across Lincoln's jacket and shoulders, a clipped planchet edge, and traces of an experimental metal composition, making it an absolute unicorn in the coin world. Now let's imagine how such a coin could survive. Many experts believe that this particular 1967 cent was likely pocketed by a mint worker or overlooked in a batch and ended up in circulation, spending decades being passed from hand to hand until someone with a keen eye noticed something odd about it. Perhaps the unusual shine, or the ghost-like doubling on the numbers. And that began the journey of discovery that would later shock the collecting community when it was authenticated and appraised for an unbelievable $99 million. The appraisal itself caused controversy, as some argued no coin should ever reach that value. But when you factor in not just the rarity but the historical symbolism of a coin from a chaotic minting period, the sheer perfection of its imperfections, and the fact that it is likely the only surviving example of its type, the price suddenly doesn't sound so unrealistic, because in the world of coin collecting, rarity, beauty, and story are what drive prices, and this coin has all three in spades. Collectors compare it to legends like the 1943 copper cent or the 1955 double die, but what makes the 1967 1 cent stand apart is that its combination of errors defies replication. It's not just one type of error, it's several layered anomalies occurring simultaneously, including a die rotation error that causes the reverse side to appear slightly rotated when the coin is flipped, subtle repunching marks on the lettering, and even micro-engraving inconsistencies in liberty that hint at the die having been polished multiple times, something only seen in test strikes. It's as if this coin represents an unintentional snapshot of the mint's experimentation frozen in copper forever. And every detail tells a story. The uneven rim suggests pressure misalignment. The raised bubble-like distortion near Lincoln's shoulder indicates a planchet impurity. And under magnification, there's even evidence of a lamination peel beginning near the T in trust, giving it a textural uniqueness that fascinates metallurgists and numismatists alike. And while all these physical traits are enough to make it priceless, the aura surrounding it adds another dimension. Because when a coin becomes the subject of myth and obsession, it transcends its material value and becomes a piece of cultural history. And that's what happened here. As word spread among collectors that somewhere out there existed a 1967 penny unlike any other, a coin that might represent the rare intersection between accident and perfection, and soon theories began to circulate that perhaps it was intentionally struck as part of a secret test batch, or maybe even a prototype for a new alloy that never went into full production. And since the mint has no official records of such an experiment, the mystery deepens, fueling the legend even further, and that legend has drawn in investors, historians, and treasure hunters, all eager to learn more about the coin that turned pocket change into a near nine-figure fortune. And while skeptics exist, the documented evidence of this particular specimen's authenticity, verified by top grading services, confirms that whatever its origins, it is undeniably genuine. The coin's surface shows the faint rainbow toning that occurs only through natural aging, meaning it was never artificially altered, and its die markers match none of the standard 1967 varieties, confirming its one-of-a-kind status. And it's worth noting that in 1967, millions of cents were produced, but due to the rush of minting, quality control was minimal, dies were overused, and replacements were inconsistent, creating an environment ripe for misstrikes and mechanical doubling. But even in that chaos, the combination that led to this specific coin's features was astronomically improbable. We are talking about odds so slim they border on impossible. And yet it happened, proving that luck and error sometimes combine to create greatness. And it's not just about the physical coin, it's about what it represents, a moment in history when technology, pressure. Next, 1975 D1 cent USA coin. We explore the most fascinating and unbelievable stories about rare coins hiding in plain sight. And today we are diving into an astonishing discovery that has taken the coin collecting world by storm. Because we are talking about the 1975 D1 cent coin that has been valued at an unbelievable $78 million due to its extraordinary and mind-bending minting errors, mechanical anomalies, and historical context that have made it one of the most talked about and desired coins in numismatic history. And as crazy as that may sound, once we start breaking down the peculiar combination of mistakes that occurred during its minting process, you'll begin to understand why this little copper coin is no ordinary penny but a masterpiece of minting chaos that turned a 1-cent piece into a multi-million-dollar marvel. So welcome everyone, get ready to be amazed, and make sure you stay with us to the end because the story of how this 1975 D1 cent coin became worth $78 million will completely change the way you look at pocket change forever. Now let's dive deep into the wild world of this coin's origin. Because to truly grasp its significance, we need to step back into the year 1975, a fascinating time in American history when the US Mint was adjusting to several changes in production methods, materials, and machinery that led to a number of minor but noteworthy errors across various denominations. And among the billions of coins struck that year in Denver, one stood out because it somehow managed to combine not one, not two, but multiple distinct minting errors, each of which would already make a coin rare on its own. But together they created a perfect storm of imperfections so bizarre that experts still argue over how it could have possibly happened. And that is what makes this 1975 D penny so mind-blowingly valuable. At first glance, you might think it looks just like any other Lincoln cent from the era, with Abraham Lincoln's familiar portrait on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, but a closer inspection reveals something astonishing. The date, 1975, is doubled so sharply and distinctly that it almost looks like two sets of numbers overlapping at slightly different angles, creating a ghost-like appearance under magnification. And this doubling isn't the result of common mechanical doubling that occurs when dies bounce slightly during striking, but rather a genuine doubled die error, which means the design on the die itself was engraved twice at misaligned positions before being used to strike coins, an incredibly rare and valuable error that collectors dream of finding. And if that weren't enough, the D mint mark beneath the date shows signs of repunching, meaning the mint worker struck the letter twice in slightly different spots, leaving behind a shadowed D over D appearance that adds yet another layer of uniqueness to this specimen. And as if that weren't wild enough, the coin also exhibits an off-center strike of about 15%, meaning the die hit the planchette slightly off target, leaving part of the design cut off by the rim while the other side has extra blank space, giving it a lopsided yet mesmerizing look that instantly draws attention to its imperfection. And under the right light you can even see faint die cracks snaking across Lincoln's jacket and forehead, signs that the die used to strike this coin was worn and fractured, producing raised lines of metal that trace across the design like veins of history frozen in copper. But the real kicker is the planchette itself, because metallurgical analysis revealed that this 1975 D1 cent was struck on an unusual alloy composition containing traces of both zinc and nickel, elements not normally present in the bronze planchets used at that time, which has led to speculation that this coin was accidentally struck on a transitional or experimental planchette left over from test batches, or perhaps even on a foreign planchette intended for another denomination entirely, such as a coin meant for export or a test piece for upcoming composition changes. And since 1975 was just a few years before the 1982 shift from bronze to copper-plated zinc cents, some experts believe this coin might be an accidental test strike from early experiments, making it not only a mint error but also a prototype of sorts that was never meant to leave the facility, yet somehow it did, slipping into circulation and vanishing for decades until a sharp-eyed collector discovered it among a batch of ordinary change and noticed the strange doubling on the date and the off-metal color that seemed slightly paler and shinier than typical bronze, leading to one of the most exciting discoveries in modern coin history. When it was first brought to experts for authentication, It immediately caused a stir because no one had seen such an extreme combination of features all in one coin: the double die, the repunched mint mark, the off-center strike, the die cracks, the unusual planchette, and even faint signs of die clashing on the reverse where the obverse and reverse dies had struck each other without a planchette in between, leaving behind ghostly outlines of Lincoln's head faintly visible behind the Lincoln Memorial, a phenomenon so rare it seems almost supernatural. And all these layers of imperfection turned what was supposed to be a 1-cent coin into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And when you think about how this could have happened, you realize that 1975 was a year when the Denver Mint was pushing production hard, with machinery running almost non-stop to meet national coinage demand. And that kind of intense output often led to overlooked mistakes, dies not replaced in time, and planchets from different batches getting mixed together. And while most of those coins were perfectly ordinary, one extraordinary combination of all those little mistakes created a numismatic miracle, a coin that defied all odds and encapsulated the unpredictability of the minting process. And what's truly fascinating is that when grading authorities examined this coin, they confirmed it wasn't tampered with, altered, or struck outside official mint procedures. It was 100% authentic, a genuine mint error that somehow survived decades of circulation in remarkable condition, showing only minimal wear on high points and a stunning natural patina that highlights its unique details. And the more experts examined it, the more questions they had. Because every inch of it revealed new mysteries, from micro-doubling on the lettering of Liberty to faint traces of what looks like a second strike on the reverse, giving the Lincoln Memorial pillars a ghosted double appearance. And that's when the legend of the $78 million penny began, spreading through collector circles like wildfire. Because once word got out that this coin wasn't just an error but a perfect storm of multiple errors layered on top of each other, its fame skyrocketed, and soon high-end collectors and investors from around the world were battling for ownership of what was now considered one of the greatest modern US coin discoveries of all time. And as prices soared, the story became even more sensational, because this wasn't just a fluke, it was history, a tangible reminder that the most valuable things often come from imperfection, that mistakes can sometimes create masterpieces, and that's exactly what this coin represents: the human and mechanical unpredictability that gives minting its magic. And what's even more fascinating is that the coin's reverse side also holds secrets, because when viewed under magnification, you can see faint doubling on the words United States of America, along with a weakly struck E pluribus unum, signs of die deterioration and partial grease-filled die errors where certain details were lost due to debris in the press, meaning that the die cavity wasn't fully clean, resulting in missing or weak areas on the coin. Another layer of minting imperfection that adds to its allure. And let's not forget the rim, where a tiny clip appears near the edge, a curved sliver missing from the planchette, suggesting it was cut from the end of a metal strip, another production quirk that makes it even more unique. So when you put it all together, you have a coin that combines nearly every type of minting error known to collectors: double die, repunched mint mark, off-center strike, clipped planchette, die cracks, die clash, off-metal composition, and even strike doubling on reverse details, a true anomaly so improbable that experts estimate the odds of all these occurring together at less than 1 in 10 billion. Which is why it's no surprise that it has been valued at a jaw-dropping $78 million. And what adds to its mystique is the mystery of how it escaped the mint in the first place, since quality control procedures should have caught it, leading some to theorize it may have been a test coin struck unofficially by a mint employee. Last 1986 D1 cent USA coin. We uncover the most mind-blowing and unbelievable stories hidden in the world of coins and treasures that might be sitting unnoticed in your pocket change. And today's topic is going to absolutely fascinate you because we are diving deep into the incredible story of the 1986 D1 cent coin that has stunned experts, collectors, and investors alike by being valued at an astonishing $54 million due to its jaw-dropping minting errors, mysterious composition, and the extraordinary set of coincidences that make it one of the rarest and most valuable modern coins ever discovered. And as always, this story reminds us that the smallest details in something as ordinary as a penny can lead to life-changing discoveries if you just know what to look for. So stay tuned and imagine for a moment finding a coin in your change that looks a little odd. Maybe the color seems slightly different, or the design looks misaligned, and then learning that it's worth tens of millions of dollars. Because that's exactly what happened with this 1986 D penny, and the more experts studied it, the more they realized they were looking at something that defied logic, a coin that shouldn't exist under normal minting conditions, yet here it was, real, authenticated, and priceless. So let's take a step back into the year 1986 when the United States Mint was well into the production of copper-plated zinc cents, having transitioned from the old bronze alloy in 1982 due to rising copper prices, and by this time, the Denver Mint, which produced the D mint-marked coins, was operating with some of the most advanced high-speed coin presses available, churning out billions of coins each year. But as with all mass production, occasional errors slipped through the cracks, and sometimes those errors were so unique that they created coins unlike anything else, and this particular 1986 D1 cent became a perfect storm of such mistakes, combining multiple rare minting errors into a single specimen. That captured the imagination of the entire numismatic community, and to understand what makes it worth $54 million, we need to explore its unique characteristics, starting with the most striking visual feature, the doubling on the obverse, where the date 1986 and the word liberty appear doubled so sharply that even the naked eye can see it, and under magnification, the effect is mesmerizing, with each number and letter appearing as if it was struck twice at slightly different angles, creating a shadowed, ghost-like appearance that collectors call a true double die, and unlike simple mechanical doubling caused by die bounce or vibration, this kind of doubling happens when the die itself receives two separate impressions from the master hub at misaligned positions, meaning the error is permanently engraved into the die and then transferred to every coin it strikes, making this kind of mistake extremely rare and valuable. But what's even more extraordinary about this coin is that the doubling doesn't stop there. The reverse of the coin also shows faint doubling on the lettering of United States of America and E pluribus unum, making it a dual-sided double die, something so rare that it's almost unheard of. And when combined with the fact that this coin also shows signs of an off-center strike, a small clip at the rim, and faint die cracks running diagonally across Lincoln's shoulder and through the top of his head, you begin to realize why this penny has become such a legend, and that's before even mentioning the mysterious composition anomaly that has left metallurgists scratching their heads, because when tested, this 1986 D penny showed traces of a strange metallic mix, including slightly higher levels of nickel and tin than typical for the copper-plated zinc planchets of that era, leading experts to theorize that it may have been struck on an experimental or transitional planchet left over from test batches used during material adjustments, or even a foreign planchet that was accidentally fed into the press. And that theory gains even more traction when you consider that the coin's weight is slightly off from the normal 2.5 grams, coming in at about 2.72 grams, which doesn't match any standard composition for US cents after 1982, adding another layer of intrigue to its story. And while a difference of a few tenths of a gram might seem small, in the world of minting, it's enormous. It's enough to suggest that the blank used was never intended for mass production and may have been part of an internal experiment that somehow escaped the mint. And that makes this coin more than just an error. It makes it a piece of minting history, a relic of experimentation and accident combined. And the mystery doesn't end there, because the coin also displays evidence of a weak strike in certain areas, particularly around the lower rim, where the details fade as if the pressure wasn't distributed evenly during minting, possibly due to a die misalignment or improper die pressure, which when added to its list of other errors, turns it into an almost impossible combination of anomalies that statistically shouldn't exist together, yet somehow they do in this one breathtaking example. And when collectors first heard about it, skepticism was high. After all, such a combination sounded too good to be true. But once professional grading services authenticated it, confirming that every one of its unusual features was genuine and not the result of tampering, the coin's fame exploded, with experts calling it one of the greatest modern-era coins ever discovered. And soon after, the bidding wars began, as elite collectors from around the world competed for ownership of the piece, driving its value into the tens of millions, not just because of its rarity, but because of what it represented: the unpredictability of the minting process, the beauty of imperfection, and the thrill of knowing that even in an age of precision machinery, chance could still create miracles. And while the physical errors themselves make the coin remarkable, what truly drives its astronomical value is the story behind them, the historical context that gives meaning to its existence. Because 1986 was also the year the US Mint was introducing the American Eagle bullion coins, and some internal adjustments and calibrations to minting presses were being carried out across facilities, so it's entirely possible that the Denver Mint, during these machinery updates, experienced brief inconsistencies that produced unusual strikes like this one, and while most were likely melted down or caught during inspection, this one somehow survived. Perhaps pocketed accidentally by a mint employee or simply overlooked and mixed in with circulation coins, and decades later, it re-emerged as a jaw-dropping find. And what's even more astonishing is that under close examination, the reverse of the coin reveals signs of die clashing, meaning the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchette between them at some point, leaving behind ghostly impressions of Lincoln's profile faintly visible on the reverse field behind the Lincoln Memorial, a subtle but unmistakable feature that adds yet another layer of uniqueness to an already impossibly rare specimen. And imagine for a moment holding this coin in your hand, seeing all those layers of history: the doubled die, the off-center strike, the clipped rim, the die cracks, the misaligned pressure marks, and the mysterious metallic composition, all frozen in a single piece of copper-plated history, and realizing that it's not just a coin but a one-of-a-kind artifact that embodies human error, mechanical imperfection, and the unpredictability of chance. And that's what gives it its soul, because coins like this are more than just monetary instruments. They're accidental works of art, shaped by history and circumstance. And when you think about the fact that this tiny penny could be worth $54 million, it forces you to reconsider what value really means, how something so small and seemingly insignificant can hold within it a story of rarity, chance, and discovery. And the irony is that most people who handled it probably never noticed its differences. They probably spent it at a gas station or a store, never realizing that they were passing through their hands a once-in-a-century masterpiece of minting misfortune. And that's what makes coin collecting so exciting, because at any given moment, the next life-changing find could be sitting in your pocket right now. And what adds to the mystique of the 1986 D1 cent is the way it has influenced other collectors to re-examine coins from that era, sparking a wave of discoveries of minor doubled dies, die cracks, and off-metal strikes that had gone unnoticed for decades, proving that there's still so much left to uncover in modern coinage. And the story of this penny serves as both inspiration and reminder that even in a world of mass production,